Yo, what are you doing right now? We are going to get real about men's issues, who Jesus is, and who we are as men in Christ. We're going to hear Trey, Jeremy, Michael, and Brad break it down. These guys call themselves the Cussin Christians. All right, guys, what is going on?
All right, shoulder and L2.
His shoulder's bad.
An ACL. His body's failing big time.
Michael's got no shoulder, no knee, bad heart, bad back.
No, my heart's good. Heart's good.
Oh yeah, I forgot the heart healed up. But by all, if you were a horse, I would have put you down weeks ago.
Tough working in the insurance industry. Your back and shoulder, man. It's tough.
It's all that sitting and driving.
So what? We're a couple of weeks away from Halloween.
Yes, we are.
I was at BJ's the other day walking. You know, they had all the Halloween candy stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of a recovering candy-holic. So, you know, people don't drive by liquor stores on their way home. Like, I avoid the candy aisle on purpose.
Well, I'll enable you after Halloween. My kids will have so much candy. I'll just bring you a shopping bag.
Just try not to look at it. But I saw this box. There was, they had all the candy stuff out there. And I looked at this one box, and they were veggie crisps. They were like little bags of veggie crisps. But it was all packaged like it was Halloween stuff.
No.
Like, some kid's going to get a bag of veggie crisp, and when he goes to the door, he's going to be pissed.
It was like getting an apple. We used to.
Oh,
man, I had an arm even at 8, man, and I was wailing those apples on cars and people's front doors.
Well, the house that handed them out, they got them back.
They got wailed.
Yeah. I don't know. We have a couple of dentists in the neighborhood, and they all think they have to give out, like, toothpaste and toothbrush. Like, it's cute and original.
Man, that would be such a gem.
Like,
it is.
Come on. Like,
it's the one night of the year where it's like, this is what it's about. It's about the candy.
Just dress up, leave your apples some candy, and leave it.
All right. So I got into a debate on social media as a responsible, mature adult yesterday.
There we go.
That's you
Absolutely.
On social media. I've seen you.
I actually did a good job. You'd be proud if I showed you my responses. So you guys...
Did you tell them to be nice now?
No.
Okay.
No, I told them that I didn't care what their opinion was. I had mine.
Yes.
Well
done.
No, so actually, he may listen to the show, so he'll hear this, and it'll be interesting to hear what you guys have to say. So his stance was Christians cannot celebrate Halloween because it's a satanic holiday.
Are we celebrating Halloween, or are we doing it in the... I mean, you're dressing your kids up like ghosts and all that stuff, or are you dressing up like...
Well, I say Happy Halloween, so I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
We didn't celebrate Satan or do anything satanic. We just got dressed up and got a bunch of candy, had a good time.
We had a big fair at the church, and the kids would be able to go to different little things and get their toys and candy.
Pop raffles and all that stuff.
And have, then that freaking goldfish they gave away.
That died before you got home.
Oh my gosh, I hated that.
Oh man, guys, October's coming to a close. This is episode 99,
yes, sir.
And we're making arrangements to... I'm leaving here to meet with someone about recording episode 100 after I get back from vacation live at a location with some wings out front.
Yes.
So get ready. But,
make sure he has that special lager too.
Oh yeah,
he will have that special lager. I've had it.
I want to try one of those.
Is the Christian alcohol?
Yeah,
that's it.
Sweet.
That's it.
I may have to start drinking then. Though.
Episode 98 was so much fun with Joseph. We didn't really have a chance to debrief after that, but our talks on Israel, and since we met with him, American bases have been attacked now, and sporadically, but there have been attacks on American bases in Iraq and other places. It just seems like Gaza is bubbling over.
Yeah.
And the humanitarian piece, we have a lunch in a few days. By the time this airs, it'll already be gone, but we had Joseph speaking about the political, the military, the terrorism and history aspect, and the guy speaking this week is about the humanitarian aspect of what's happening with the innocent people in Gaza that are having to evacuate. And they have over 600,000 people in shelters right now.
Wow.
600,000 people.
Wow. Is that in Gaza?
And that's in Gaza, yes. And of course, electricity's been cut off. Supplies are running really, really low. The relief organizations that are trying to bring in some relief to the people there, they don't have gas where they can drive stuff in. So our prayers are for what's going on there. Well, we're behind Israel 100%, but man, there's a lot of innocents that are suffering.
Our government's going to send $100 million over there. Do you really think those people are going to get it? Who's running Gaza right
And that's
now?
what we talked about last week with Joseph. Who's to ensure that
It's not going
money
to happen.
doesn't end up in a bank that gets to Iran?
Well, it's unfortunate because there are Pakistani people that do need that money.
Right.
Like they're not everybody's a terrorist in Pakistan, and it's it's terrible
Bad situation.
But it was awesome to have his insight, and I know the podcast of that went out a day or two ago. But I'm getting people just calling and saying, "Dude, that was cool." Never heard that. So another guest pretty soon. I think we need to have another one.
Let's do it.
You think we should?
Yeah, I think we maybe need to talk to one down in Palm Beach.
Oh, you think he should be here with us?
Oh yeah, I'd love to get him on.
That was an interesting night, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yes, it was.
I was. I've been fired up at those events before, and we're talking about the men's conference that happened this last weekend. We had Tullian Trivage and come on. Did I say his name right?
He came close.
Pretty close enough. Closer than most of the people that talked to him that night. But they, dude, like I couldn't be there on Saturday, and I was kind of upset about it.
Right.
I had the kids' final football game, so like I couldn't start at 8.
Yeah.
Right.
You know. So, but man. Yeah. The way he talked about it, the way he like just brought it, and it was unlike any preacher because he is a preacher, right? And he's one of the Grahams, so I didn't expect that out of that guy.
The Friday night session was very informative. I saw a lot of note taking, and then Saturday we drilled down on some of the things he said, and all in all, the 150 or so guys that were there, that the overall consensus was they loved it. A lot of people said, "I got a lot of questions." A lot of people said, I'm going to dive into the Bible and double check some things. So, and that's the purpose. Anytime you bring someone in, I don't like to try to bring people that are quote unquote controversial because, he told me a story at lunch after that when he was a rebel when he was in his 20s. He talked about he smoked pot and did everything. And
got kicked out of his house at 16.
Got kicked out of his house
Dropped
at
out of high
16.
school.
Surfer dude.
Yeah. But he talked about when it finally, the Lord called him to go into ministry, that his conversation with his grandfather about that was his grandfather said, okay, you need to do this. Here's what's going to happen. And he told him, you're going to go study it, your personality and the way that you read this, you're going to preach it to the masses. And then you're going to have all these little outside people that start trying to inject things, whether it's politics or you need to go a little more Calvinism or you need to, whatever it needs to be. And he says, when it all shakes down and after all these pressures come at you, you always just have to flip and always just point straight to the cross and let that be the common denominator. Let that be the essential thing that connects you to everybody. You know what he mentioned, and Michael and I we had a little lunch with him after. We were talking about his event, the moral failure that he had, and it was horrible. And but how the family came to his side. He had a lot of people that were pointing fingers, and at first it was a shock, but then no judgment from his grandfather, and those that were in that immediate circle, and let's just work through this and get it going. Great, it was a great experience. Our next event, MPACT event, is going to be in Melbourne. It's called Impact Warriors, and it's going to be a breakfast on Veterans Day here in a few weeks. And so if you're in the Brevard County, Florida area, Church at Beer is going to host it for us, and we're going to, number one, honor veterans. It seems like this year we've had a lot of veterans that have been introduced to us that are really struggling with adjusting into civilian life. They've isolated. They got this brotherhood of camaraderie when they're out there, and when they come back in, they get isolated. The depression, the alcoholism, suicidal thoughts, things like that kind of fit into our narrative and what we do and trying to help brothers overcome. And so we're gonna take that, and we're gonna have this appreciation breakfast on Veterans Day with some great testimony of guys, veterans that overcame that through Christ and through genuine brotherhood. So if you're listening to this, just check out the website. It's on the front page of our website. You can register to come to it, and it's free. Just register so we can help plan the food. So, but in any case, one thing that Tullian mentioned on Friday night, and part of the reason why his fall, not a fall from grace, but a fall morally, was so significant, was based on the family he belonged to. And he even said it when we had some Q&A on the stage. And I said, growing up in your situation with your family, and I couldn't find the right word. And he goes, you can just say it. We're Christian royalty.
Yeah.
He said it just like that. And because you think of Billy Graham and you think of everything that organization's done, it is. I mean, he's sat next to presidents and all of these things, and all of his family's been exposed to the same stuff. And it brings up a topic that's on your heart about putting all these people on pedestals and the famousness of them. And we wanted to kind of go through that today as far as, should Billy Graham been put on a huge pedestal, as great of a man as he was? And I never forget when I met him one time, and it was later in his life, and I just so happened to be at the exact same place he was at the exact right moment, and shook his hand, told him I love your the Dodger Stadium crusade that he had. And, but at the same time, it just seems like in our society, we put all these people on a pedestal. We do it in the church. You see the mega super pastors that are on your face on Instagram, preaching a message, whatever. What was your thoughts, Brad, that as we approach this topic today?
I think with all the social media, we have more people today who are famous for no good reason at all.
Right.
People that are famous for playing video games or opening products or whatever. It's kind of ridiculous, because back in the day, if you were famous, you probably did something notable. You probably did something that was honorable, or you were exceptionally gifted at something. Nowadays, people can be famous for nothing. Yeah. Just for, I don't know, for whatever, for having cool cars or just having a following. And we kind of measure our success by how many followers we have.
Influencers,
I'm doing pretty well. Just
influencers that go to all these resorts around the world, and they write about it.
Sure.
And if you get so many Instagram followers, you got companies that are paying advertising and promoting you, and you make millions of dollars just by doing something stupid.
Sure. Yeah. But I think fame.
You say that with your teeth gritted.
It's like,
look at your face.
You want to be that guy.
Look at your face, man.
I'm still working for a living, man.
Yeah.
To be on Instagram and get millions of dollars for
traveling.
Let's bring up a good example, and it's the Kardashians. It's like their whole thing is based on garbage.
Well, I think fame has destroyed many more lives than it has really helped. And you look at actors, musicians, athletes. They don't know how to deal with it, and I think that's why alcohol and drug abuse is so rampant in those areas, because they don't know how to deal with the fame, the pressure.
They're filling the holes in themselves with so many other things. I get where you're going.
Yeah, and look at stars. Can you imagine? You don't have a personal life. You can't just go down to 7-Eleven and get a cup of coffee anymore.
No,
I was watching a thing on social media, ironically. That's where I consume most of my information. It was Taylor Swift, actually, and she was giving a speech.
That's a hot topic right now. Her and
Travis Kelce.
Travis.
The
whole game, dude.
Yeah,
I started watching it after your text. I'm it was true.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to stop watching Chiefs games because they cut to her every time something happens.
With Kelce.
Every time he catches the ball, I'm like, dude, I don't
she's
care
up to
about
be an
her.
announcer next.
Huh?
They're going to make her an announcer next.
It's ridiculous.
She's going to sing the national anthem, and then go up to she's going to sing the national anthem, and then be on the sidelines with pom poms, then go up to the broadcast booth.
She can do it all.
Play by play. Go ahead.
But yeah, so she was actually talking about how her fame has changed in her image, and she's like, and she had probably another point than what I'm bringing out of it, but she was talking about, okay, well, in the beginning I was a country singer, and then people told me my music was too pop, so then I switched genres. Then they told me I was dating too much, so I went off the scene for several years. Then I come back on the scene, and she was like, so the world's telling me what they want me to be, and every time I do it, they tell me I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
That's the problem with doing what the world tells you to do.
There you go.
Be your own person.
Did you watch her documentary? Americana. I think
I'm not watching that.
I handled the 30 seconds.
I watched the first.
Watched it?
Dude, I watched the first 15 minutes.
Trey is a Swiftie.
Now I know
I'm
he
not a
zips up on the
Swiftie, but
side.
I'm fascinated about the stories of how they got to where they went.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And but she said that.
Mm-hmm.
I tried the first half of my career to do nothing but please people and make them happy, and it always backfired.
Mm-hmm.
And is that the problem? Is that the problem with fame? I mean, it changes people for sure.
Yeah.
And very few people seem to handle it well. So I just had this question: were we even meant to be famous? Did God ever say, I want to make a bunch of people famous? Isaiah 42:8, God says, I'm the Lord, that is my name. I will share my glory with no other.
Yep.
So it's like he's the only one who should be famous. If you become famous, I guess, in the course of what you do, or you become well known, that's one thing. But I think there are a lot of people that are vying for that, and that's their purpose in life, is to become famous.
Yeah.
And it doesn't lead to anything good, really.
Yeah. Everybody wants to go to Hollywood, okay?
Yeah.
And I know there are believers in Hollywood, obviously, but
We know of at least one.
They keep their mouth shut. They don't come out and say, even conservatives, it's like, do I really want a stage like that where I can't say how I feel or it affects my livelihood?
Yeah.
Well,
No.
I don't think anybody knows how it's going to affect them. There's nothing that can prepare you for fame and how that's going to affect your life. And for most people, it's a curse. There are a lot of those Hollywood stars who don't want to be. They don't like doing press. They like acting, but they don't want to be in front of a bunch of people, and they don't like the harassment they get in public. And it's just like, so we have this idol worship mentality in our country, where with the paparazzi and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
Number 2 movie on my all-time top 10 list is Forrest Gump. And you remember when Forrest went to Jenny's college, and it was raining, and she's talking to him in her room, and she goes, "Forrest, I want to be famous. I want to be just like Joan Baez." And then just me and my guitar and the lights, and then a little while later, he saw her face on a marquee, and oh my gosh, she's playing at this place. And he walked in, and she had her guitar on a stage, but she had no clothes on.
No.
And Forrest was like, she accomplished her dream. But no. And then Jenny spiraled but her focus was that instead of let me serve, develop, and then fame comes to you, or people respect you for what you did type thing.
Yep.
Well, they wanted to make Jesus famous. The whole idea was to make him king. You talking
about who?
Jesus. The people around him, when he was doing, like, he just fed 5,000. He was healing everything imaginable.
Yeah. This is good.
He
I know where you're going.
Was put upon a pedestal, and they wanted him to be the king that takes away the Roman rule.
Yep.
That's, and I think that's one of the reasons Judas did what he did, because his disciples were like, yes, we finally got somebody that's going to kick some ass, and that's not what Jesus's message was all about. That's not who he was going to be. And the thing is I remember when they were clamoring to try and get around him, and it says he walked.
Yeah.
It's like supernatural. He walked through them somehow. Whether that was supernatural, I don't know. I'm thinking it was. It was like, choo, see you bye.
Yep.
Because that's not the role he wanted or was supposed to play.
Yeah.
And you think about the number of times that the crowds gathered, and he would just disappear.
I love that.
He would go.
He didn't absorb the praise.
He didn't absorb it.
He tried to deflect it back on God. I was reading, there's a story in Acts about Herod, and it talks about Herod was sitting with his robes, and he made this public address, and the people said, "This is not the voice of a man. This is a voice of God." And it says immediately, because he didn't renounce that. He's like, okay, like he took it. It says immediately an angel of the Lord struck him down, and he died and was eaten by worms. Look it up. It's an Acts. It's a funny detail there at the end that he was eaten by worms. But when the people said this is the voice of a God, he's like, yeah, that's cool. Like he absorbed that glory and that praise for himself, and God's like, nope, I'm not going to share it with you.
Kings throughout history, though.
I forgot about
they
that.
all think they're appointed by God, right? Like, the pharaohs thought they were God. Look at the guy over in North Korea right now. He thinks he's the son of a god. It's pretty normal for those type of folks to think like that. But it's interesting. God actually says, yeah, well, you're not.
Right.
So I'll show you. I don't think there's an issue. I think I have a little bit of an interesting perspective. Like I would call myself famous. I'm like a Z-list celebrity in some circles.
Z.
Right?
Well, you were the dancing champion.
You were a dancing champion in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I was Mr. Dance of Kentucky.
We need to go back and pull that one out and listen to that one again.
NFL.
And we still hadn't seen the pictures of you in your tights yet.
West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia. Played football at West Virginia. I went to the NFL for a short while. So I had a little bit of a taste of it. And I was around some of these guys. Like Shawn Merriman was across from me. And that guy was definitely as famous, right? and LaDainian Tomlinson, Phil Rivers. Like, I know all these guys. Like, or I did. I can't call them now, but but my point is like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being famous. Like, I don't see there being wrong. I think that if it happens naturally and if you're doing it for the right reasons, like, I think God can use that. I mean, Billy Graham's a great example.
Right.
I mean,
how do you stop it?
You can't, right? Like, if you're going to be famous, you're going to be famous. And if you want to seek it out, you'll seek it out. And you can get that. But God can use that in everything, right? So I think that God has purpose for everyone in every role that they're in. And some people are in roles of fame for a reason. Sometimes that's to show a really good example to the world. Sometimes it's to show a really bad example to the world.
Yep.
And if you're doing it for the right reasons and you're using that gift for Him, then great. Like, go for it. I'm all about it. But not all of us can handle it.
Right.
And I think a lot of the people we see on YouTube and on just all the crap I watch on social media, like, they're famous because they're trying to make themselves in a godly position almost.
Gotcha.
And like, that's where they're going wrong, right? And then once their time's over, because it will be over, by the way, like, it's only the shtick gets old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, then they're still left trying to regain that fame again. And that's why you see these guys on these reality shows that are doing the spin-offs that are 20 years old. They haven't been on, like, they have that villain show out now. Only reason I know is my wife had it on this morning. But they have this villain show on Bravo now. It's all like the celebrity villains from all these reality shows are on there.
Yeah.
Some of these guys were on reality TV 20 plus years ago, and they're still chasing that fame back that they had during that 1 year, right? Yeah. Well, why are you doing that? Like, what are you missing in your life that you need this show? You know? And that's what I think about fame. I think that those people have a chance to use their pedestal for the right reasons. But if they're not, then, obviously that's why you see them crash and burn all the time. That's why athletes go broke years after they have millions.
Let me ask you this. When you see somebody after a big win or Super Bowl, I'd like to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. What do you think? Are you a sin sniffer? And I'll give you a good example, okay? I watched the 3 quarterbacks with Manning or with Kirk Cousins and
Mahomes
and the guy from Atlanta. I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
I think he went to Hawaii. Anyway, and you're watching this and you're looking at Kirk Cousins and he's going home and he's praying over his kids before they go to bed, and he took a lot of grief because he's a Christian and he's out there about it. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes and you see him as he professes to be a Christian. I don't know, but then you look at his lifestyle and the things that he says, and you're like, you look at somebody and go, man,
he's walking the walk or he's not walking the walk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
and
watch
that's not
it,
our place to say, but that goes through your mind.
Right. If you watch it, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. And I had to back off and go, who am I to judge anybody with, if anybody took a magnifying glass to my life, I'm like, let me go, yeah. And I'm sure there's people going, Michael Thomas is a Christian, is a believer after all this that he's done.
Yeah.
That could be said about me. But when you see people famous like that, I think you go through that list of
check it off. Yeah.
Check it off. Okay.
Well, you feel this need to validate that their heart's in the right place, versus you or I, we're a little less. You just kind of take it at face value. But they're also more public in the figure in the world, right? So if I had a camera crew that followed me every time I went to Publix or you went to Lowe's and you said,
or I was driving in my truck.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I guarantee there's times we don't look that Christian.
Right.
Yeah. I was thinking about Solomon and Saul in the Bible. They both started out really well as kings. And, Solomon had wisdom. Saul, like, the favor of God was on Saul, but at some point they got derailed. And Solomon ended up building a city for his horses. Like there were things that the prophets before had said you shouldn't do this as a king, and he did it. And he was known, like he was the most famous guy in the world. He was well known. He was rich beyond measure and all that kind of stuff. So him and Saul both, Saul got jealous when he heard the people singing about David, because originally he was the man, and now he's not the man anymore. So I just think it's a cautionary tale. And like you said, I think God can elevate some people to use for his purposes.
Well, let's talk about this last weekend, okay? Because we're having lunch, and our guest was talking about his grandfather. And you think about Billy Graham, and all we think of are the 70,000 people in a stadium, Dodger Stadium, Yankee Stadium, Astrodome, wherever it was. But when it started in the early 60s, maybe late 50s, I'm not sure which, he had that little tent revival in LA. So was Billy Graham's goal to spread the gospel or to be the biggest known evangelical preacher in the world?
I think over his career,
And
you saw that he wanted to promote God, because if it would have been about promoting himself, I think he would have fallen at some point, or you would have seen that would have come out over 50 years,
Right.
or however long he was doing it.
Well, there's no reason God can't start you saying spread the gospel, and then all of a sudden you get a certain point of fame, and he goes, you know what, you've got some momentum here.
yeah.
Let's
Right.
go ahead
Well,
and get
then-
you to be the largest individual.
Well, get ready, because he was having this tent revival thing in L.A. 500 people showed up first night, 1,000 people showed up second, and all this. And then Randolph Hearst, the media mogul of the time, got wind of it, snuck in the back of the tent and listened to Billy Graham's message.
You want to preface who Randolph Hearst was?
He's a media mogul, print.
Owned almost every newspaper.
Almost every newspaper in the country,
Radio
had all
stations.
the radio stations, television was coming around, had his fingers in that. Walked out of that revival and was so moved, he got on the phone, and it was, what's the term? Puff.
Puff Graham.
We need to puff Graham,
Puff Diddy. Puff Graham.
right?
Hmm.
And
I think they had two different meanings.
and the next night, 11,000 people were there.
Wow.
And that's kind of
That's where
what
it started out.
catapulted Billy Graham. Now, he starts out with this, I want to give the gospel to the unreached, and I want to, challenge the Christians to, look inside themselves. And it went from that to, the worldwide Samaritan's Purse, and all these things happened as a result, basically, of one guy that was so moved by the word. He said, do it. Let's get this guy on there.
Sure.
I think your point, though, is valid, though, because I think the reason most people probably shouldn't be famous, from my perspective, is that they haven't figured out who they are in Christ first, right? Like, it's different if you have that inside of you and you have that driving you, and that stays centered. And as long as you keep it at the center, but to your point, these kings, by the way, that lost sight of that, they all lost their kingdom.
Yeah.
So
they crash and burn.
They crashed and burned. And I think God has a way of saying, hey, I'll put you in this position, but if you start letting me not be the center of that position, I'll take the position from you.
Yep.
And I think we see that a lot.
Yep.
And not just with super famous people, we see it in our day-to-day life too. Like,
yeah, you're right.
when you lose sight of God in your day and you start making the day about you, about the money, about the whatever, like, you tend to crash and burn.
Yeah.
And you get recentered again, all of a sudden life goes well.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like,
Well, in Tullian's case, a guy with that type of personality, if he didn't have Christ in his life when he fell, can you imagine like how bad his life would be? I was just thinking the difference between us and the world is that we have that anchor in Jesus, so that things go wrong, because we all screw up. But how do you react to that? How do you react to that? Do you eventually come back to the Lord and say, Lord, help me, pull me out of this? Or do you go on a bender? Because a lot of people do, and some of them die from it.
Yeah.
And so even like Tullian's a very intense guy, very intense personality. I can imagine, man, if he didn't have that foundation of Christ in his life, what would have happened to him when he fell?
That's why it's so important to not put our faith in man, because man will always fail you. Look at Jimmy Swaggart and Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, and there's multiple other ones that have fallen. Tullian, for example, I'm sure those people were putting their hope and glory in him as their pastor. They were, leading him, and he fell, and everybody's like,
took off.
How many people stopped serving the Lord because of men have failed them? And it's like, put your trust in the Lord, because He'll never fail you. And realizing like who we are in Christ, we're able to do that.
Right.
And just because that man might have pastor in front of his first name,
Pastor's not even, I think was it mentioned once
in the New Testament. He's just Joe Schmo like us, and the temptations are still there. Crouching, the deceiver's crouching around the corner, waiting to trip you up. And
because you take somebody down like Swaggart had, a huge Jim Baker, $1 million, you're going to take out a ton of followers because of it, because their emphasis is on the man and not Christ Jesus.
The man on the stage instead of Jesus.
And I agree with him too, by the way. That's the biggest failure our churches do today, is a pastor falls down and everybody abandons him.
Yeah.
Well, that's the perfect time to say, hey guys, this is what grace is actually about.
Right.
Yeah, maybe he needs to step away from leading the flock for a minute, but he's going to stay in the church. He's going to keep a role in the church. But instead, we push them out and hope to just sweep it under the rug, and they just disappear, and they're in another city trying to do their thing again.
Yeah.
And I made a
But-
comment last night to the guys that see it. And it's like, okay, alcoholism, drug abuse, you name the sin. It's like those seem to be more accepting as failures if something like that is going on, and people kind of rally around that. But when you have a sexual sin that Tullian had, and it's like, man, it's like what we used to grow up with in the Catholic Church. The difference between mortal sins and venial sins. Venial sins is, stealing a piece of candy. Mortal sin is killing somebody. And it's like, there's no differentiation between sins. And why are we as believers putting so much emphasis on it and condemning at a higher level than what we should?
Well, and how much pressure are we as the church putting on these pastors?
Right.
I mean, we know of at least one that we know that Trey knows. I don't even know his name, but that struggles with pornography, and he has no one to go to. So he's reaching out to a man in Florida that can keep his anonymity, so that he can actually deal with this sin.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't have someone in his own state to talk to,
Right.
in fear that if they find out that he's struggling, like most men do at some point in their life, that he'll be outcast. He'll lose his career. He'll lose his family. He'll be shamed. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no wonder the pastors we know are so guarded and they don't want to talk. I feel bad for them.
Yeah. I mean, a lot there. They close up. They keep private, and I respect the privacy piece, but at the same time, you never know who's going to turn on you, because you're just a man, and you might say something off the cuff in a public setting, or maybe you're at a restaurant that maybe you're at a restaurant one night with your wife enjoying some Middle Eastern food, and they have a belly dancer going around that gets a little too close to you, and somebody gets a picture of it.
Yeah.
In today's world, that's a real fear.
That's a real fear today, and so there, those type of things. Yeah, he gave us one story at lunch that day that I just thought kind of goes along this line of fame, and also goes along this line of when someone falls. He was talking about his grandfather, who was close to all the presidents from JFK to, until he died. And he was invited to go to a big gala at the White House and sit at the presidential table with Bill Clinton.
Yep.
Just so happened that 3 weeks before Monica Lewinsky blew up, right? So Billy Graham got a phone call from the White House saying, "Hey, Mr. Graham, we're so glad you're coming. We understand the optics might not be really good for you to be sitting next to the president at this event. So we've made arrangements, should you want, to put you and Ruth at a separate table, a few tables away." You know what Billy Graham's words were? "I want to sit at the table with the president, and if you remove me from that table, I am not coming."
Gotta sit with sinners, baby.
So here's someone that was so famous. Well, and I'm not talking politics. I'm talking personal stuff here, okay? Agree with his politics or whatever. One of the most famous men in the world, if not at the time, fell morally, and the Christian man wanted to say, "I'm sitting next to him. I'm going to put my arm around him. I'm going to get him through." Tullian talked about his guy that was there for him, Pastor Paul.
Yep.
And how if it wouldn't have been for him, there was that one person that said, "Okay, that sucked. What you did was bad form, bro, but..."
And I thought that was sad. He was pastoring a very large church at the time, and he only had one guy.
Yeah.
One guy who stuck with him. Everybody else just
That's
shut him out.
And that's typical.
Yeah.
You had
I
the same
think.
thing?
What's that?
You had the same thing?
No, that's just what I mean when I was saying earlier. It's like, if he would have said, "Hey, I'm having struggles with alcohol," people would have rallied around him. Or, I'm struggling with cocaine. It's like, but then you get it's like they put the sexual sin above everything else and strip this guy. I understand there's a way about going things in the hierarchy of the church, but man, as believers, we need to rally. As men, we need to rally around guys like that.
Well, that's what's so special about Impact. And I think that's what Tullian was saying, right? And he said it at one point on Saturday night. He says, "You guys don't understand how rare it is
That you have
a group of men that get together and have these conversations with each other, that truly don't condemn each other, that truly don't walk out the door and tell their wives about it so it can become rumors." I mean, that's like the center of what Impact is.
You saying women gossip?
I'm not going to say they don't.
But and
men
he
do
was
too,
he was
but-
responding to one of our brothers that night in
Keith.
that room, Keith, who had the porn problem, was busted by his daughter in the middle of porn.
And for everybody out there, Keith's very open about
Very
this.
open. He
outside
talks
of
about
the
it
men's
everywhere.
conferences.
Right.
Yeah.
Written
But
a
he
book
just
about it.
he
Right.
he spoke in front of the group. He was the last guy that night to comment from the floor. I don't know what I would have done had I come in here and someone rejected me, but you guys brought me in. No condemnation, no judgment. I got your back. Because so many guys in that room realize I might be one of the 6 that go home and look at porn tonight.
Well, yeah.
You know or I've had that problem. You know what I'm saying? So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to set up why he said that. And he says, you don't know how lucky it is you have a church with grace in the mission statement, and you don't know how lucky it is that what an anomaly it is that you can have this happening.
Well, and I think it's amplified to get back to the famous topic, right? Like a famous person, if they reveal who they are to anyone, and it's the wrong one, and there's a lot more wrong ones than right ones. It's national news.
Right.
I mean, even a B-list, C-list star becomes an A-list star overnight when they screw up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then unfortunately, sometimes they see that as an avenue to make their career even bigger. You know, they become the villain because I mean, that's terrible to think of, but they do. I mean, and it's just sad. I think for the women listening, like, you need to allow your men to have a chance to be vulnerable in a way that they can feel like they can actually get through these things without letting it blow up in their face.
Right.
Like the same thing with men. Like, we need to be there for other men so they have a safe place to talk to, where they actually feel like it's not going to blow up in their face because they were honest for the first time in maybe their whole life. I mean, that's where the failure is, right? And again, to fame, it's just amplified.
Right.
You know.
Well, this is good stuff.
Sorry,
No, that's good.
I go back to the scripture you read at the beginning, and I'm blanking out on which one it was.
Is that Isaiah 42?
Yeah, and always focus on the cross first.
Yeah.
And if fame or notoriety comes to you by focusing on the cross, that's going to touch a lot of people. But if it's not about the cross first,
it's gonna crash and burn.
Well, 1 Corinthians 10:31, I think was one of the things that you said in the text, and then that's whether you eat or drink, do everything as if it's unto the Lord.
Right. And Psalm 115 says, "Not to us, but to your name be the glory, because of your love and faithfulness."
yes,
Because of his love and faithfulness, he should get the glory. Because I mean, none of us have. We can't do that.
we're not capable of that.
It's like, why? Because when you think of it in that context, it's like, well, then why should I receive any glory? I mean, there are admirable things, there are commendable things that we do that you can say, good job, dude. But it's not the same. It's not on the same level as the glory that he should receive because of his love and faithfulness. So, I mean, if you find yourself in that place of fame, just try to deflect it as much as you can and give glory to God.
It's not me.
Well, I
Not
got to tell you
absorb it.
guys, I'm doing this podcast simply to become as famous as I can.
How's that working
We're
out?
going to zoom in on Jeremy the whole show.
I mean,
47 countries
we're in 47 countries. I mean, that's worldwide, baby.
I know.
Watch out, Pitbull. I'm just saying.
Hundreds of listeners every month.
We need to start wrapping this one up because it's getting deep in here. No, but seriously, if you are listening from somewhere, another state, another city, another country,
Like, follows, and shares are free.
like, follows, and shares are free. Send us an email on our MPACT Brotherhood support page. It's impactministries.org. That's spelled MPACT ministries.org. Send us an email. We'd like to hear where you're from. Also like to hear your story, your revelation in Christ, and let's just start a dialogue. And then
if you're struggling with that,
if you're struggling with anything, and you'll see on the Brotherhood page, kind of where we're coming from on that.
You know, and if people are afraid to email us because of their identity, right? I just thought about this. You can create a free Google account.
Yeah,
You can email us anonymously. You don't have to put your name at the end of it.
No.
We'll still reply to you.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm going to do that and send you emails.
you wait till you see the ones I sent back.
So here's the plan. We're going to take a week off, and then we're going to come back and record the 100th episode. And we can't wait to do that, celebrate, and not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet, but we're going to do some reminiscing, have some fun, eat some wings, and do what we say we do. Eat wings, talk Jesus, talk sports, whatever we need to do to that day to have some fun with
We
it.
even have a sarsaparilla.
A sarsaparilla.
Whoa.
In any case, so we'll look forward to catching you guys then. Thanks for checking us out, listening to us as we grow. it's been a lot of fun.
Get your impact caps.
Get your impact cap.
Yeah, man.
You
I didn't know we had
go in
those
there.
now.
Yeah, we. I've got you one. I thought I had you one, but
You gotta get an extra large for that cranium.
I
Look
know.
at the size. It looks like a
My
peach on
kid
the
gave me a hard
cranium.
Well, once we wrap this up, my kid was giving me a hard time about my head size yesterday.
There's so much information up there.
Yeah,
That's
there
why.
is. It's just packed.
That he gets from social media.
That's how this brain fits.
Check out. You guys have an amazing weekend, and we will catch you on the flip side. I am Trey.
I'm Michael.
I'm Brad.
I'm Jeremy.
We are the
Cussin Christians.
Come on, baby.
Trey's handed out honey buns for Halloween.
we're going back to honey
honey buns
buns.
and footballs for Halloween. So come by his house.
Why is it-
Honey buns and footballs.
I love honey buns, man. Especially
Yeah.
you put them on the cookie sheet and heat them up with
Yeah,
the icing.
You
melt
put
it
that
up.
much effort into your sweets, huh?
Oh,
Dude, I am a sweet.
You told that
machine.
story a couple weeks ago about how you and a friend went and got some honey buns and watched football
Yeah.
while you were talking.
That
Like,
sounds
who
so
does
awesome.
that?
Yeah, I could
That's
see
not the
eating those
combination.
cheeseburgers that they put in between the donuts. You seen those?
Oh